Kathrine, good morning to you. How are you?
Good morning, Alan. Good morning, everybody. Delighted to be here.
You're there at Kilcock Art Gallery, and you've been working on a body of work for the last 2 years, which is most interesting. Can you tell us a little bit about it and the origins of it?
Yeah, I'd love to. We're here in Kilcock Art Gallery in County Kildare, and this is the second leg, the second interrupted leg, if you like, of my exhibition, Shifting Sands, A Startling Evolution. It's all about the different habitats of the North Bull Island and Dublin Bay and how they interact with each other. So I've walked the island literally for the past 2 to 3 years. I know every inch of it at this stage. And the paintings are really based on the plants of the island. So I've been looking down all the time rather than looking up.
Yes, yes.
So originally it was planned in Kilcock here for April. And of course, like everything else in Ireland, it had to be postponed. So we sort of realised, Frida and I realised early on that we wouldn't be able to have a preview or an opening in Kilcock for the foreseeable future because of social distancing.
Yes.
Frida's been here for a long time, 42 years, Frida, I think. Yeah, 43 years. And so it's a wonderful gallery. But socially distancing just wouldn't really work for a preview. So we started thinking outside the box, and we came up with an idea of having a warehouse exhibition, a bit like what they do in New York and these big cities.
Yeah.
So we took over a section of a warehouse in Tala in Dublin, and we had a preview there on the 12th of September. And it was to run there for 2 weeks. And then on the Friday, COVID level 3 restrictions hit, and we had to shut our doors on Friday evening. But the first week was great. We had a great first week, thankfully. Good. So then we moved to Kilcock on the 1st of October, opened again, and that was to run to the end of October. So after 1 week, they shut us down again.
So really, this is your third time?
This is the third time, yeah. And
but despite that, you've sold quite a few pieces, and I'm delighted to hear.
Yeah, yes, fantastic. Yeah, great support. And it's about 26 or 27 pieces sold.
Superb.
So I'm delighted with that. And the piece behind me you can see there that was actually acquired by the OPW for the state collection. So I was pleased about that. Yeah, so it was the 2 weeks we were open were great, and now we're completely online. I mean, if someone wants to make a private appointment to come and view, one-to-one or whatever, or maybe 2 people maximum, if you wear a mask and talk to Frida, we'll see what we can do. But generally speaking, it's online now to the end of October. But we're hoping we might be able to open the last week of October or so.
Yes, yes.
So
well, hopefully, yeah. Hopefully, I think a lot of the galleries are doing that now, aren't they? They're doing it by appointment only.
By appointment only. So it's not open to the public as such, but you know, we can make a special arrangement.
Okay.
But the actual work is all related to the different habitats. So the North Bull Island is a UNESCO biosphere reserve of different habitats, and it's extremely important. Dublin Bay is a biosphere reserve, and you know the Bull Island is within that. Yes. And then Bull Island itself has many more designations as a nature reserve and bird sanctuary and many others. So it's a very important place, and we have to be so careful to conserve it for future generations and for the environment, of course. Yeah. So you have everything from mud flats, sand flats, salt marshes, grassland dunes, sand dunes, freshwater marshes, and then of course Dollymount Strand, the beach, which is beloved of Dubliners and a great place for a walk, as I always say.
That's right. And the interesting thing about Bull Island, for those of you who don't know it or wouldn't know it, is it about 5 kilometres long?
It's about 5 kilometres long and about 800 metres wide. Okay. So it's a sand spit.
Exactly. It's a sand spit. And it was created when they built a pier leading into the Liffey, into Dublin City. And because of the tidal movements, it resulted in this land being created. So it's literally only 200 years old, isn't it?
It's about its 200th birthday at the moment. Yeah.
Exactly. Yeah.
So it was started by human intervention, and then nature, of course, took over. And these wonderful habitats have formed. So there's a lagoon on the leeward side, and the rivers run into that. And then the mud and the silt from the rivers at low tide, you can see extensive mud flats.
Yeah.
And then, of course, plants grow up like glasswort, and the marsh grasses and that. And they raise the level over time of the mud flats, and then salt marshes can be formed.
And are there any plants that are unique to it?
Now, you're asking a question I don't know the answer to.
Okay, I won't ask you then.
Probably not.
Yeah.
Probably not, no. No,
Okay.
but there are some very interesting plants, of course.
Very, very, very interesting plants. And we'll go into that later. What I'd like to do now, Kathrine, is to, because you're there and your studio is a couple of miles away, is to do something you pre-recorded for us very kindly, which is a tour of your studio. And we're going to do that now.
Well, welcome to my studio. It's at the back of my home in Straffan, County Kildare, and it's a two-part studio. It used to be a one-part studio. The building on the left is north-facing, and it has a glass wall at the front, so lots of light but no direct sunlight, which is fantastic. And then a couple of years ago we built a second, part two, and the building on the right is for, I call it dirty work, so all the messy work. And the one on the left is more for working on projects and that sort of thing. So I'll just show you this at the back. Behind the studio is where the formal gardens finish and the wild garden starts. So we've a pollinator friendly zone. It's a wildflower meadow, about 1/3 of an acre or so. And at the moment there's not much to see because it's just been cut down for the winter. So I'll take you back around here to the dirty studio. So it's not the most pristine in here. Now, so you can see there's lots of benches, a big rack for spray paint, and this fantastically designed table that I can turn around, which is great, very handy. This is ventilation system here. I'll go back far enough you can see it better. So it's a very large fan and extraction system up here. What we have here is a studio for all the messy work. And also I have my plants in here, so I collect plants during the summer when they're flowering, and I press them and dry them, and then I have plants to use for the winter time. So as you can see here in the bottom shelf, lots of grasses, and these are, I don't ever pick anything that is protected in any way. These are common or garden wild plants, so you have lots of grasses and docks and angelica, figwort, meadowsweet, all that type of thing. So you can just see here, all the way along. A little bit of rose bay widow herb there, and teasels, honesty, lots of figwort there. So I'm in the process of just drying these out. I had pressed them and they just needed an extra bit of drying. This is ragwort, fantastic for pollinators. Purple toad flax and some meadowsweet there, and some hemlock and wild carrot. So these boxes here, I had these long boxes, they were boxes for electric lights that I put my eye on. So you can see all sorts of yarrow on top, and there's ragwort up there, and there's lots underneath as well, layers of it. So we have rose bay widow herb here. So once they're dry, they last pretty well, and I can use them in my work. I was also, my next project is bog, so I was down in a wonderful bog in Tormund Barry this summer and collected some heathers and that type of thing. You can see the heathers there. So that's my next project. Now, this is the UV lamp. So can I turn it on there to show you? Very bright. And when I'm doing cyanotypes, They're basically a very old form of photography. You do not use a camera. You use paper coated with 2 different chemicals mixed together, and you wait for it to dry overnight in a very dark place. So because the light, UV light, will actually develop the image. So you have to keep it away from UV light until you're ready. And then this is a UV light, or you can use sunshine if you have it. Not always available in Ireland, but even a dull day for a long exposure, it can work quite well. So then I have this tank here, which just basically is just a water tank. I have a little clothesline for hanging various things like cyanotypes and seaweed. This is seaweed here I was working with when I was doing the Bull Island cyanotypes. And this is a sort of almost finished project. It's covered in plastic, you can't really see it. It's sand martins, flying sand martins. It's a wire sculpture. So that's for another day, because I wasn't quite 100% finished or happy with it. So I'm just going to show you under this bench a couple of things. First of all, this is a photographic bag, light-proof photographic bag, and when I prepare the paper with cyanotype chemicals, I leave it dry actually in these overnight. So, and I would put this photographic bag over it to make sure no light gets in, and then when it's dry for storage I put them in the photographic bag so no light can get in. But on the next shelf up is my aluminium. So I normally paint in aluminium and sometimes paint on paper, and I use good quality paper such as Fabriano. But I think a lot of people are interested in the aluminium and what goes into the preparation of it. So I'll just tell you a little bit about that. I lift this piece out, a smallish piece. Actually, I use this one's easier to lift. This is what, 40 by 40, I'd say, 30 by 30. I'll show you the back first of all. So you see the shiny aluminium on the back. That's the way you'd normally see aluminium. And this is the primed surface. So it's very smooth and beautifully smooth and ready to go. So what I do is I use a bond. So it's a special bond that is applied to the surface of the aluminium, and that has to dry. And then after that's dry, we add on a special primer, this grey primer that you can see. And then that is baked in an oven overnight. So it's put into I'm lucky to have access to an industrial oven. So it's put into an industrial oven overnight at a lowish temperature and baked. So the result is a very hard surface, but lovely and smooth. And I should say, before they start priming it, it's actually rubbed with some steel wool or something similar to give it a slight tooth. So that's how I prepare the aluminium. So we're leaving the messy studio now, and I'll take you into studio part 1, which is for the cleaner sort of work. So where I work on paintings that have been already painted, working into them, drawing into them, making marks, etc. So I just pan around now. This is Lorelei, my one and only attempt at clay modelling, and she's wearing a mask, as you can see, so all safe in here. Now, so this is the glass wall we're looking out at the house, and it's north light, facing north. So there's no shadows cast, there's no strong direct sunlight, just a nice muted light all day long. So it's fantastic. Big workbench here. So this is something I'm working on at the moment, and you can see the tools that I'm using. So engraving, not engraving, but yeah, engraving tools, I suppose you call them, and old pencils, blending sticks, and actual engravers as well occasionally, and jeweler's tools. There's the jeweler's tools there. And some colour pencils for working into various mixed media pieces, brushes and scissors, etc. Drawing board here, and these are mount board which I'm using for cyanotypes at the moment. So there's some for the next project that I've started on, some bog cotton, lichens and wild asphodel. Small printing press, which I really haven't had much use from yet, but I intend to remedy that. And underneath here we have all sorts of rolls of paper and newspapers, all that type of thing. This is wire for my wire project that I was doing, I showed you. And I have a chart draw, an absolute must for anyone that works on paper. So it gives great space. So these are a few things that are in progress. And at the bottom, I have lovely fresh paper, lovely Fabriano paper there. A few files that need to be filed away, and books that I use all the time. Zoe Devlin's Wildflowers of Ireland is an absolute must. Some feathers that I've been making cyanotypes from for the Bull Island project. Some photographs from the past. Some African masks. A bit scary looking, but I think they're friendly. Racks of oil paint and watercolours, inks, all that type of thing. Some canvases that have been reprimed, and some old frames. I think every studio has quite a few old frames that didn't work out for one reason or another. Filing cabinet, absolutely jam-packed with stuff. There are some files in there as well. Couch for visitors, teddy bears for grandchildren when they arrive. So that's the studio.
That was super. Thank you very much for doing that. And it was fantastic. I mean, you know, there's so much there. And I know we're going to see one piece where you were talking about the spray paints and so on, and that you need to be very careful where you use those. So I know you're a big instructor fan, but you also need to wear PPE, which everyone knows about these days.
PPE, yeah. Personal protective equipment, definitely.
Definitely.
Yeah. And to protect my lungs.
Indeed. So what I think would be an idea is that if you start going through a couple of your early works and then bring it to the present day, it'll give us an opportunity to ask questions about process and about your sort of your work schedule and all that sort of thing. So
okay.
We'll do that and bring that up now. Yeah. All right, so Kathrine, can you take us through these? I know this represents some of your early work, but before we get into that, I'll just ask you one thing. Were you always doing art? Was it a full-time thing from very early on, or is it something that you kind of grew into?
Well, it wasn't always full-time, no. I've always painted and drawn from the moment I could hold a crayon in my hand. And my mother always encouraged all of us to paint and draw at home, and she's an artist too, still an artist.
Yes. At
83. So when I left school, I first went into commercial art. So I did some paste-up artwork and that sort of thing, which isn't particularly inspiring. And then I changed career, met my husband and had 4 children, and with a family business. So everything was really put on hold. But all the time I would have drawn and painted to a certain extent.
Yes.
Part-time, if you like.
Yeah.
So when I was about 38, 39, I was approaching my 40th birthday, I took stock and I said, I really have to get back to this and dedicate time in my life to paint, because that's what I want to do.
Yeah.
So I decided I go to the CEAD courses in NCAD, in the National College of Art and Design, and I found them very useful and learned a certain amount about technique. I probably did about maybe 5 or 6 different courses between Easter and evening courses, you know.
Yes.
So this is some of the early work you're looking at here. So the subject matter was very varied, and I was trying out everything at first. So there was landscape, still life, figures, all sorts of things. So this, I always look at this and think it's almost like a bit of an exercise.
Yeah.
Yeah. So this is a still life that I did, probably back in the year 98, 99, 2000, something like that.
Yes.
I can't quite remember.
Right.
So I learned a bit of technique in NCD, and then I painted, in various styles. So this is one, a fairly early one as well. And this is part of a series that I did relating to the sea and really what's underneath the ocean. This one actually isn't underneath, but you can see there is a little bit of life there in the rock pool, a small fish.
Yes.
I started painting these a few years after my dad died. He was a sailor, a very keen sailor and navigator, and he sailed lots of long journeys in his lifetime. He was also an engineer. And he died at sea. He drowned, unfortunately.
I'm very sorry to hear that.
Thank you. He went over the side of his boat accidentally. He was ill at the time. Unfortunately, he had cancer and he'd been ill for some time. Yes. This is his last journey, if you like, along the coast of his home place, along the Antrim coast. And his boat was found drifting in Red Bay in County Antrim in 2001, June 2001.
Yes.
So it was a big shock to all of us, to the family.
This painting has a lot of meaning then for you.
It does have a lot of meaning for me. It's just part of a series that I did. I have the rest of the studio at home. I don't even got sight of them on the wall, but I'd never parted them.
Yes.
And this one actually, it's thongweed and it's a rock pool. And I saw those things when the guards brought us to see where Dad's body was found. Yes. So he was lost in Red Bay in the County Antrim, and he ended up on the north coast of Donegal. And about 5 weeks later, 4 or 5 weeks later. Lord. And it's okay to talk about it now, but it was difficult for a long time. And I actually couldn't paint these, maybe for 4 or 5 years afterwards. And they were somewhat cathartic, really. So this one actually was accepted by the RUA in 2008. So to me, at that time, it was a big thing for me, so I was very pleased about that, especially that the painting has so much meaning.
Of course, of course.
Yeah.
Very beautiful, very beautiful.
Thank you.
Okay, and this is a lot of meaning too. You have a series of these. I think there's one more. There is one more as well that we'll see. But I particularly like these, but maybe that's a man thing. I don't know.
I think it's a boy thing, all right.
Boy thing. I should be over it by now.
Yes, well, I was doing all these different subjects and so forth. Anyway, our family business, we repair, manufacture and upgrade traction motors, the motors that drive trains.
Right.
And I just decided that I would do a train painting really just to put into the reception of the business, if you like.
Yes.
And of course, these modern trains they're all right, but the steam trains are really where it's at, aren't they? With all that wonderful steam and smoke and mist. So I painted one, and then of course I was asked to paint quite a few more. And then I became a member of the Guild of Railway Artists in the UK. I'm actually still a member, even though a train hasn't been created in a long, long time now, and probably never will be again. But that was a little phase I went through, I suppose. Yeah.
But I love them. They're fantastic. And
Thank you.
Beautiful ones.
Thank you.
And I think you do a calendar as well for the business.
Oh yes, the business. Yes.
Card, is it?
We would have done calendars, and this actually was used for a Christmas card. This particular one, kind of appropriate, really.
Sure.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. So in about 2013, then I was asked to do a fundraiser for the United Arts Club, just a small postcard size piece, or a couple of them. And I left it to the last minute and realized that I hadn't time to do anything in oils. So I started messing around with a few spray paints that I happened to have. And I just was totally hooked when I started using them. And this is one of the early ones from 2013, and it's called Jeweled Wasteland. So you can see the technique compared to now. The technique is pretty basic, but it's all about color. It's a certain amount, it's composition, but it's mostly about the color, isn't it?
Yes.
So this was actually exhibited in my first real solo exhibition, which was in Signal Arts. And the exhibition was called Jeweled Wasteland. And this was the the main piece. And I still use this for all my business cards and logos and things like that, because I just love the colors in it.
Fabulous. And is that done in aluminium, Kathrine?
That one is on paper, and at that stage, I hadn't even thought about aluminium.
Ah, okay. All right.
Yeah. So I was using watercolor paper and Fabriano, that type of thing.
Yes. And you mentioned in the studio tour, a thing that I couldn't work out, cyanotypes.
Cyanotypes.
Can you just explain before we move on?
Yeah, I have it listed, just the two I can never remember the chemicals involved. So I have them written down here. One second.
You won't know them anyway, don't worry.
Thanks, Peter. And I have a little example of one here as well.
Yeah.
So a cyanotype is an old photographic process, pre-Victorian. And it was used actually for the original blueprints for drawing offices and that sort of thing. So there's two chemicals mixed together. Now they are potassium ferric cyanide and ferric ammonium citrate. So there you are. Now you know why I can't quite remember them. Don't trip off the tongue. They sound very noxious, don't they? But they're pretty benign. So they're mixed. Yeah, they're mixed together, and you coat paper or some other organic surface like cotton or linen or whatever with them. And you do this in the dark because UV light develops these chemicals. So what you get when they develop is a beautiful cyan blue color. Oh, right. So you put them somewhere dark to dry, and then you can take them out then and you can place objects on them and you get a photogram, what's called a photogram. So I, of course, put organic matter onto the paper, and I made various shapes of plants and so forth. Yeah, so the bog cotton would be a typical example of that. Well, I just show you this now. This is the bog cotton. Can you see that there? Yeah. Oh no, sorry, you're yeah. No, sorry, I'm just holding it up there. This is just one that I'm working on, this bog cotton there, where the basic image comes out in white, the rest comes up cyan blue, and then I've drawn into and painted into the piece, so it's like a mixed media piece. So I would play around. The cyan method is pretty straightforward, but then you use it and manipulate it and play around with it, and you end up with your mixed media pieces. Yes. And you could do double exposures or wet cyanotypes, where you can add turmeric or pepper or coffee or whatever you like to make different sort of variations in the colors. So that's cyanotype. So it's interesting. Very interesting. Very interesting. Yeah. Sorry for throwing you off there. So we'll get back to this. Okay, well, this is another early piece called Firefly Light. So it just again shows the very basic technique that I'm using now. But always, I find it's very, very important to get light into it. Because to me now, I get down on the ground, I'm looking through the undergrowth, and what you're seeing is an insect's eye view of the world. Yes. So the light is filtering through the plants, and I always try to achieve that in the work. And even in the underwater work that I'm doing now, light will filter down through the water, and it's important to describe that. Yeah. Very beautiful. Very beautiful. Yeah. Okay. So again, this is one that I actually met Noelle Campbell-Sharp shortly after the Signal exhibition, and she sent me down to Kilreelig, and that's one piece I did down there, in fact. And then when I came back up, I showed her what I had done, and she gave me then a solo exhibition in the Origin at the time. Mm-hmm. It was 2015. Very good. And that's one of the ones from the Origin. So you can see the technique slightly changing. Now, in the meantime, she had said to me, did you ever think about painting on metal? Which I hadn't. Mm-hmm. So I went away to research that and talked to my other half as well, who's an engineer. And he actually said that aluminium was the best choice because number one, it was light. Yes. And number two, it doesn't rust. But it had to be properly primed because otherwise the paint would just fall off it. So I just described briefly what I have to do to prime it. But basically it's what's it called now? I have the name here. Sigma Cover 280 epoxy. And so it's two-part. One is a bond and one is a primer, and it's blended together and it's applied and then it's baked in an oven for a number of hours at a low temperature. And that so yes, it gives it a very hard surface and a smooth surface. But beforehand, they will either sandblast it or use a copper wire on it to get a little bit of a bite to it, to hold the paint. So these are on aluminium now. This one's on aluminium as well. So that was done down in Kilreelig as well. So they were all exhibited in the Origin Gallery. And
are you using oils on this, Kathrine?
No, it's all acrylic spray paint.
Oh, it's all acrylic. Oh, right, okay.
Yeah, it's all acrylic spray paint. The name of that exhibition was Soundings, Beauty from the Depths. And when I was down there, I actually, I was sort of remembering about my dad and all that sort of thing again.
Yes.
And he used to bring us to Kerry on summer holidays, himself and my mum. And he used to take us up Carron climbing and point out aspects of the landscape to us. And he was very much into the environment and nature, as was my mother, who's a painter.
Yeah.
So those memories kind of came floating back when I was down there. And that's the exhibition got its name, Soundings, which is a method of determining the depth of water.
Sure, yeah. And I mean, just the depth of that painting is extraordinary. It's so 3D, isn't it?
Yeah, a lot of people say they think they're underwater.
Yeah.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
That's right.
So this is, the next exhibition was The Native Irish and a Few Colonizers. And that was in the United Arts Club. It was 100 years since the 1916 Rising. Mm-hmm. And I wanted to commemorate it in some way without being political or in any way partisan or whatever. So I just took 5 sites of the Rising, and I looked at the plants on each site, and they would have been the plants that would have been there 100 years earlier. And they were the survivors, if you like, almost like our poppies. So this is Mount Street, and it's just at Mount Street Bridge, and you can see the rushes and all the different grasses there, and the angelica and various different plants. So that's what that one is.
Lovely. Yeah.
Another one from there, that's Moore Street, that's Buddleia, which grows absolutely anywhere it can, the butterfly bush. So I went down a little lane off Moore Street, and there was this Buddleia just growing on top of the wall. So that's a real survivor and a real opportunist.
Yeah.
Yeah. And this one actually was in Art in Bloom, and it's the first time it was in Art in Bloom. It's in the Phoenix Park with all the rest of Bloom, and it won a silver medal, and I actually didn't realize they gave medals for paintings until I arrived the next day and saw it. But yeah, it's a wheat field in Castle Warden near my home, and on the edge of the wheat field there was all these wonderful wild plants taking hold and colonizing the edge of the field. So that's what that one is.
And do you etch into the aluminium as well?
I do. So I put the color down first,
yeah,
and decide what colors I want to use. I put the colors down first, and I make an assemblage, if you like, of organic material that I've collected, or indeed I have dried. You saw in the studio I have some dried, so in wintertime I'm not stuck for something to use. And I make an assemblage and just decide on the composition. And I put some of the organic material down onto the wet paint, and then I use them as stencils. Yeah. I spray through them, I spray other colors through them, and then I add more organic material, and layer upon layer, more paint, more organic material. And then I remove everything, and what I have is sort of a blurry image, but it enables me to get the light into the piece. Doing it, this technique enables me to do that. So what I'm left with is a very blurry image, and what I've described is probably maybe not even 10% of the work. So then it goes into my clean studio, and I start working into it with the tools that you saw me using. So a little etching pen and ordinary pencils, and maybe an engraver even, jeweler's tools, blending sticks and so forth. And I sort of reclaim the image and add to the image. And then after that, the longest part, I think, is going back into the other studio, donning all my safety gear again. And I mix the spray paints in small pots. And then I use a brush, the more traditional tool of the artist, and I go back in and I paint into the piece and adding detail, shade, light, and so forth. So it's quite a long process.
And very, very detailed. Yes, it produces some extraordinary results.
But on some of them, you can see where I've actually etched down almost to the aluminium itself. And in some of the pieces here, you can see on the seaweed pieces, the highlights are actually the aluminium. So I can show you those later if you like.
Okay.
So this is from the Bealow Glade, which is here in the wonderful Kilcock Art Gallery in 2018. It was opened by Philip McCabe, the bee man, who a lot of people know and loved. Unfortunately, he died a few months later after that exhibition, but he gave a wonderful talk that day all about pollination and the different plants that we should be growing to help them.
Yeah.
So this is, another one is wild carrot. And that's one of my favorite plants. I just love it. It's just so pretty. This is one that was accepted for the RUA in last year, and it's nettles. Now, nettles are wonderful for butterflies. And there's about 5 different species of butterflies actually lay their eggs on nettle plants. So if you have lots of nettles in your garden, you can maybe want to take some of them away, but leave some of them behind because they're very important. It's very important to have a nettle patch. And this one was in my exhibition, Quina Ungaria, which is the hare's corner, which is the tradition in Ireland of leaving the corner of a field uncut for nature so that insects can come along, plants can grow up, insects can come along, and then a whole ecosystem is born. So it's nature and farming in harmony.
Lovely.
And this one is Purple Loosestrife in Kilreelig. Another time that I was down there that I did that. Again, it was part of, it is called Cottage Garden Kilreelig. And again, plants being allowed to grow in the corner of a garden. And there was like butterflies and bees all over those.
Yes, yes.
Okay, so we're at Shifting Sands, a startling evolution. This is Bull Island Tangle, and you can see it behind me. And this is kelp and bladderwrack swirling under the sea, in my imagination. I didn't actually go under the sea, but I would have gathered the seaweeds off Dollyman Strand to have a look at them and to use them in the work.
And that's now gone to the Street Collection. We're going into the Street Collection.
It's going, yeah. We're hanging on to it for the exhibition because it's the centerpiece of the exhibition.
Yeah.
And
lovely.
Yeah, so this one is Causeway Path. So as you walk down from Raheny down to the Bull Island, you'll pass lots of beautiful plants on the way. And this is yarrow and purple toadflax, just growing along the side of the road. You know, you wouldn't even notice it unless you stopped to look, but fantastic for pollinators, both plants. Yeah.
And this is you.
Oh, right. This is me.
Graffiti artist.
This is me modeling my safety gear. It was actually taken by someone up in Almeria in Spain, up in the mountains. I was at Hoya Air artist in residency up there a few years ago, and a whole load of different plants to play around with up there, and a whole different climate, but a really interesting experience. It was in a natural park, and there was no water whatsoever. So water had to be literally tanked in every 2 weeks. So very different, very interesting place.
Very good, very good. That was wonderful. It gives a good flavour of how your career has progressed. And what are you working on at the moment?
Well, my next project is bogs and fenlands, boglands and fenlands. So I was down in Tormenbarry in County Roscommon during the summer. A friend has a house down there. And they brought me down to Tormenbarry Bog. And there was these absolutely amazing Canadian pitcher plants. Your Canadian guest there, or Canadian friend will know about them probably. Yeah. Canadian pitcher plants, they're carnivorous. And of course, bog is very, very poor nutrient-wise. So the plants have to find their nutrients from somewhere. So they eat flies and insects. Yes. They attract them in and absorb them slowly. So this sort of piqued my interest in bogs, and so I've been kind of looking. I've been at some local bogs and that sort of thing. So I'm going down to Kilreelig, I hope, the first 2 weeks in December.
Yes.
That's planned anyway. And I'm hoping to throw myself
You're
down
very
into...
welcome. You're very welcome, by the way.
Oh, there's Noel. Hi, Noel.
Hello. I'm sorry I came late in my dressing gown. Have you had somebody in your dressing gown before on these?
Probably not, Noel. You're setting a trend there.
Had a late night and just got in, but I was just listening to your business about the bogs. Well, you can't beat Kerry bogs.
Oh, I know, of course.
Yeah, so you're always welcome down to our Kerry bogs.
Thank you. I'm looking forward to going down the first 2 weeks in December, COVID allowing.
Oh, wonderful! Come in your dressing gown.
Oh, I bring a hot water bottle as well, I think. Maybe an electric blanket.
Anyway, how are all the rest of you? Lovely to see you.
Lovely to see you as well, Noel.
Yeah.
So listen, I think because time is moving on, we'll open it out onto the floor. So if anyone wants to ask any questions, please do so, including you, Noel. I think we'll go quiet.
Including me.
Well, yes, if you want to ask any questions.
Well, you know that, of course, I exhibited Kathrine's works for many years.
Yes.
I would hope to continue to do so when I return to Dublin out of the bogs of Kerry, maybe next year.
Look forward to that.
I love your work, your new work. The direction of your work is really fantastic, really beautiful.
Thank you, Noel.
Thanks, Noel. Anyone else want to ask a question?
Yeah, is it okay if I just say that what was, like, what was your inspiration?
Oh, my inspiration, sorry. Okay, when I was a child, I was always drawing bumblebees, actually. That was really my main thing, bumblebees and insects and, nature, really. And then, of course, when I went back to NCAD, went to NCAD to the night classes, I was trying a bit of everything. It was more kind of trying out things and exercises, if you like, and learning about technique and so forth. And actually at the exhibition in the Origin, a particular person came along to that who happened to be a beekeeper, and he was also an eye doctor. And he sent me a list of plants, native plants that are important for pollinators. And that really got me thinking and got me on sort of thinking about pollination and nature. And now all my work really is, I'm on a path now of the environment, the natural world, habitat, and conservation. So that's what I've been doing the last few years, and that's what I intend to keep on doing. So that's why I'm interested in bogs, because they're such an important habitat. They're carbon sinks, and they're extremely important for the environment, for all of us. We have to do everything we can to preserve them. So to actually raise awareness about the bogs would be fantastic, I think.
Very good. Thanks for that, Gillian. Just to read you out a few comments, Kathrine. Liz or Murad, I think it is, your work is incredible. Alico says, love your background. I absolutely agree. They really, bring out the plants and so on. Colin says, really fantastic, Kathrine. Thank you for sharing. Sandra Chapman, great to see some of your early work again, Kathrine. I love seeing your transition to your most recent work. Yvonne says, amazing work. Yeah. Liz says, science meets art.
All right.
Science in it, isn't there? Yeah.
Yeah, yeah.
Lynn Kavanagh, gorgeous. One a really beautiful painting. Fantastic tour. Thanks, Kathrine. Your studio is amazing. Martin. Way loads of nice type of techniques. Yeah, brilliant. Yvonne, your studio is fantastic.
I'm very lucky. I'm very lucky to have such a studio, I know.
Yvonne is a very high-tech studio too.
Not high-tech, Ellen.
Well, now.
Nice face. Could I just say something to Kathrine, or say hello to Kathrine?
Yeah. Can you put on your video?
Yes.
That's Yvonne. This is hi, Yvonne.
Yes, hi. And just to say that I was so annoyed that I didn't get to see your work, because first of all, I saw it advertised. I had never been to one of your exhibitions, but I was aware of you on Instagram or whatever advertising it. And I said, I must go and see that, first of all, in Tala. And then the next time I saw it, it was gone again. And then, of course, Kilcock, and we can't. And I said, I really wanted to see that studio, because I was living abroad for years, really, and I'm just back, and I'm getting to know all the places and reconnect. And I wanted to go to Kilcock Gallery. And I said, this is your exhibition was the very one now that I would love to see. And sure, we're stuck here in the Pale again, and we can't go outside, isn't it?
It's frustrating. It's been such a challenge, really. Yeah. And I have to say here that Breda Smith here has been wonderful. She is such a tenacious lady, and she's come along with me for this journey. And it just hasn't been easy. We've been thwarted at every step, but we're still going.
Yeah.
Bye, Breda.
Good for you.
And just to read out a few more comments. Sue Cummins says, wonderful tour of your studio, lovely colours. And going back a bit, Lynn Kavanagh, good morning to Wicklow, everyone. Hi, Lynn. And Josephine, who I think might be related to you, says, good morning from Barcelona.
Hi, Joe. Love you. That's my daughter.
Ah, very good. Very good. Thanks, Josephine, for that.
Also an artist, by the way.
Is she? Very good. All right. Anybody else got any questions?
I'm going to ask something, if I may.
Of course.
Kathrine, did you say you're working on steel as a background?
Aluminium, Noelle.
Kathrine?
Aluminium.
Aluminium. Because do you remember many years ago when we had the idea of going to BMW to get you to paint a car?
Yes.
Do you remember years ago?
Mad.
We had that idea.
Yes, I do.
Of asking somebody like BMW to paint one of their cars.
I do remember well. I'm still open to offers.
Are you remembering that?
I do.
You remember it? Yeah.
Of course I do.
It's great to hear you in that material now. Yeah.
Well, you were the person who said to me, had you ever...
What is a car made of?
You asked me... You asked me had I ever...
Anyway, I love your work. So,
thank you.
Good girl.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thanks, Noelle. Now, we had intended doing a quick tour of the gallery there and saying hello to Breda. So I'd like to do that now.
Oh, this is Breda. Say hello to Breda.
Hello, everybody.
Hi, Breda. Thank you very much for facilitating this, by the way.
That's fine. I mean, her work is absolutely stunning, and through all the different hiccups and challenges we've had, we're working beautifully together, and we're continuing the show now until the end of October.
That's the spirit.
Absolutely. So would you like to have a little look around?
Yeah, let's do just a quick look.
Okay, but I'm just going to show you the television. If you look on www.Kilcock Art Gallery, you'll see the film that was made on Bull Island, and it explains all what's behind the exhibition. So if anybody wants to have a look at that.
That's really worth looking at, yeah.
Yeah. Okay, so I will start with this one. Can you see it there? Okay.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
So this is this swirling seaweeds under the water here. So I just explained what I was saying about, I don't know if you can get up close there and see.
Yeah, that's good.
Where I've actually sort of incised right down to the aluminium to get some of the highlights.
Yes, yes.
You can see it there on the bladder rack. Yeah. Okay, I'll move more quickly because I know we're coming to the end of our time.
We are, yeah.
So this is Causeway Path, again, umbellifers along the causeway, coming down from Rahuni. And mallow, you can see this on the grassland dunes. It's an absolute opportunist and it's taking over the place. Gorgeous John Bean sculpture there, just by the by. And this is freshwater marsh. So you have the wild carrot growing in the freshwater marshes, which is what happens when rainwater falls between the dune complexes, and you get all sorts growing up, including beautiful orchids. So another underwater piece here. This again was the original Bull Island. It was painted before the big one, actually. And behind Breda here, you can see marram grass, which is instrumental in the formation of sand dunes. So it comes along and anchors the sand down, and then other plants can come along and avail of the habitat. Again, this is a freshwater marsh piece. And you see mint and self-heal.
Well, I can see your red stickers.
Oh, it's a few of them, all right, yeah. But actually, there are quite a few of the paintings have already gone to their new owners because the space was bigger in Tala. So the ones that sold there, a few of them have gone to their new owners. And so we're pretty full here now with these ones. Again, you can see there where the highlights are etched into the piece. Yeah. Okay. This one here is another Causeway Path one, and it shows yarrow and purple toadflax. And then we're into the second room here. So some island elements, I call these. They're various feathers that I found around the Bull Island on my wandering. So these are Brent goose feathers, winter visitors to the island. And they come all the way from the Arctic Circle. Amazing creatures. And another cyanotype here of Harrisburg Clover. Very pretty little plant. Very clever because it takes the nitrogen from the air and fixes it into the soil so that other plants who can only get their nitrogen from the soil then can thrive. So this one here is mudflats and sand marsh plants. So very, very important plants, seminal in the formation of salt marshes. So winter heliotrope, you see this all along the Causeway Path. It's a bit invasive, but it's the only thing that flowers in the middle of the winter. So fantastic for any pollinator that pops its head out in December or January. And valerian, again on the grassland dunes, is quite invasive as well. And you see this everywhere on railway tracks and on rough ground everywhere, but it's very pretty. And when I was down in Cyrillig there last September, I was down with Claire in the print workshop, and I did some etchings of pyramidal orchids. So these are actually all painted into, so they're all unique, even though it's from the one plate. So the pyramidal orchids, they hybridize and they have different colors. So I'm just describing the different colors that I saw.
Lovely.
More grassland dunes. And another underwater piece called Squirrel. And again, you can see the highlights there. So this is bindweed, convolvulus, all over the roundabout at the end of the causeway. And again, some more marram grass. This is mixed media, cyanotype and paint and color pencils.
Gorgeous. Yeah.
So that's a quick view.
Yeah, well, thanks for that. And all of this is online, Breda, isn't it?
Yes, indeed. Everything, the whole exhibition, including everything that's not here in the gallery, the ones that have gone to their forever homes.
Yeah,
they're all online on kilcockparkgallery.ie, and that will be up for quite a while. So you know, it's good to look at. Plus, of course, the video which we have here continuously, and Kathrine narrates on it and tells you all about the island, the habitats, the plants, her paintings, and it's a lovely video to watch as well too. You'll see it on the website.
And by the way, the music is lovely on it. My brother, David McCune, organised all that for me. We used Paul Brady's song, The Island, and we had to get permission for that. We had to get a pianist, and David arranged the whole thing, and he was absolutely wonderful. So thanks, David. I know you're out there somewhere. Thank you.
And of course, Morris Graham, who was there on the day of the show in Dublin, he organised the island pictures using, what do you call those things?
Drone photography.
Drone, yes.
Drone, yes, there's some fabulous drone photography in that.
Yes, yes.
Yeah, the whole thing blends well together, I think, with the photography and the music.
Yeah, there's the drone now over the island.
You see you can see some of the drone shots there. But you can look at that later anyway.
So, yeah, well, what I'm going to do is when I the YouTube channel for the art as well, which I should have done by tomorrow. It takes quite a while to edit and upload. But I'll put links to Kilcock Art Gallery. I'll put links to her website and also the video. So that'll be available.
That's great. It's wonderful.
Yeah. So a few other comments we made. Dennis says, "Thanks, Kathrine. iPad tour really brought the painting. Brilliant demonstration of the medium. Thanks." Kathrine Byrne, stunning work. Love it. And Yvonne, thanks so much for that. It was wonderfully inspiring, which is what we're all about.
Thank you. That's lovely comments. Thank you so much. I'm delighted to be able to share it with you all.
Thank you, Kathrine. And I know you went to a lot of trouble in organising all this between doing the video in your studio, and we were throwing quite a bit on that, getting it right. And so between that and this, and Brita helping out this morning as well, I really do appreciate it. Thank you so much from all of the people watching and those who are about to watch. Thank you very much.
You're very welcome. My pleasure.
Thanks a lot. And for those watching it on the video, if you've enjoyed it, please give it a like and don't forget to subscribe, because the more people we have to this, the better for our artists, as it is there as a showcase platform for them to show their work. So we very much appreciate it if you can do that. Next week, as I mentioned, we have a poet. I'm not going to reveal who till later on in the week, but it'll be worth joining in. So I hope to see you then, and thank you all for watching. See you now. Bye.
Bye-bye.